In today's video, you're going to learn how to incorporate great lead sounds into your worship keys patches that don't all sound like this. I'm going to teach you how to avoid that and give you some practical tips for different ways you can approach adding great lead sounds into your worship keys setup. Let's check it out. All right, guys, David from Sunday Sounds here, where our focus is making it easier for you to nail worship keys live, whether that's at your church or at home on a live stream, or even if you're pre-recording your worship band. Today, we're going to be talking about synth lead sounds. And honestly, as a sound designer, lead sounds are often some of the hardest sounds to program for me, whether I'm working in MainStage, Ableton Live. It just takes a lot of work to get a lead sound right. And many worship keys players that we talk to end up communicating to us that it's often the most difficult to figure out where lead sounds fit into their worship patches. If you're watching this video, there's a good chance you already have a go-to piano and pad combination. But in this video, we're gonna help you step outside of just something like that, sort of a meat and potatoes sound, and talk about how you can integrate some really tasteful lead sounds alongside of your pianos and pads to take your layered patches to the next level. So I've got several examples and we're just gonna walk through these. I'm gonna be using some of the sounds from our Mega Leads Volume 1 sound library, which is available now for MainStage and Ableton Live. I'm working within our Sunday Keys template for MainStage. The sounds I'm gonna be using are available for both MainStage and Ableton Live versions of Sunday Keys. So whatever you're using, you can follow along. If you don't have our Sunday Keys template, just pull up a piano and pad that sound good to you, and you're gonna be able to follow along as well. So to start off with, let's just talk about a standard poly lead sound. Now I've got a poly lead here called the Mega Lead from Mega Leads. This is kind of the quintessential, sort of swirly poly lead sound. It's got a good bit of reverb on it. It's a little bit more ambient, and that's because we don't need this to be like a super jarring techno lead. We just want it to add to what we're already doing inside of a layered worship patch. Now it does have a little bit of pitch vibrato as I move the mod wheel up, which is really cool because it helps it sort of pop out and warble in and out between the more static elements of a layered patch like a piano and a pad. So this is what this patch sounds like on its own. And with the mod wheel down. Notice how the patch does fade out pretty quickly. Some lead sounds are gonna have infinite sustain, others are gonna fade out over time. When you're working with lead sounds alongside of other instruments that have sustain, one great technique can be to think of the lead sound as adding extra character to the initial attack or the notes of any melody or lead part that you're playing. Sometimes if those leads are sustaining infinitely alongside of pianos and pads and things like that, things can get pretty muddy pretty quickly. So let me give you a bit of context for how this sounds in a layered patch. I have a patch here that I've created using Patch Builder and Sunday Keys that just has the Mega Lead, the balanced piano, and this big bright pad patch. Now, before I show you what this sounds like, there's one other really important thing for you to know about what I've done in this patch. I've actually taken the layer range of the lead sound and I've shortened it up a little bit so it's only gonna be available in my right hand. So it's cut off right here. So anywhere lower on the keyboard, I just have a really nice piano and pad. And then I can go up and have that great lead sound available. And as I move the mod wheel up, it's gonna get brighter. And that vibrato comes in. So again, here's this patch just on its own. And another thing I want to point out about this lead sound that I'm using, it is not the biggest, most epic sound of all time. It's kind of doing one specific thing really, really well. This is a problem that I see a lot of keyboard players run into when they're trying to figure out how to use lead sounds layered in with other instruments. Oftentimes these lead sounds are taking up all of the sonic space. They're really meant to be the defining like solo moment kind of lead sound. And that might be too full spectrum, they might be too loud, they might not have too much going on in the high end of the frequency spectrum. All of those, or any combination of those factors, could cause the lead sound to take up too much space and end up subtracting from what everything else is doing. This lead sound is not that big. It's got some brightness, and that pitch vibrato gives it a really nice characteristic sound, but it's not huge, it's not giant, it's not epic. Until, at least, I think once you add it in with this piano and pad, then these elements combined end up being something bigger than any of the individual sounds. All right, so for example 2, let's talk about mono lead sounds. Now, mono synths are really, really fun to play. But oftentimes they can be really hard to integrate in a tasteful way into an existing layered patch. And I think one of the reasons why is that a lot of mono synths are either too subtle or too aggressive. And if the mono synth spans the full range of the keyboard, then anytime you're playing notes in the left hand down in the bass and jumping up to the right hand to play a chord or a lead sound, that synth is going to be all over the place. So before we dive into this patch example, let's talk about what a mono synth is. So the previous example was a polyphonic synth sound, polyphonic lead, which meant that I could play multiple notes and they were all available to me. They were all held out as long as I was sustaining them. A mono synth sound is only capable of producing one note at a time, and there's a couple different ways that this can play out. A traditional mono synth sound is going to play one note, and then when you play another note, it's going to be re-triggered, it's going to start over and play that new note, and the old note is going to automatically stop playing. The other type of mono synth is what's called a legato mono synth, or just a legato synth sound. And what that means is that you can play one note, and if you play another note, it's going to sort of carry on as the continuation of the earlier played note, but with a different pitch. So some mono synths are going to be true mono synths where you're going to get a new note triggered each time you play, and others are going to be legato, which means that as long as you continue to sustain either with your pedal or with your hand, you're going to get a different pitch, but the character of the synth sound is going to retain a single flow. Both of these have their place. I really like legato synths when I'm layering them in with lead parts like a piano lead in the right hand, because then I can sort of play into that attack being available to me as sort of an extra layer of expression. So if I want to get this sort of brassy attack from this block brass lead sound, I can do so. I can get that swell in. And if I want it again, I can just make sure I release before I play my next note. But sometimes I might want to get that initial brassy attack and then have a little bit more subtle movement. So as long as I continue to sustain, and here I'm doing it with my hand, but I can do it with my sustain pedal as well. As long as I'm holding down a note, then I'm going to get that nice, long, smooth decay that's programmed into this sound. So let me show you what this sounds like in a layered patch context. I'm using the exact same balanced piano and big bright pad sound from the last example. It's just a different lead sound. So this is what that sounds like. Just the right hand so you can hear that. So because this is a legato synth, I'm able to get the initial brassy sort of bright attack at the beginning of each of those melodic lines, and then it fades out a little bit and makes some more room for the piano. So mono synths can be a really great way to add a little extra energy to a lead part in your right hand without getting all in the way of everything that is already going on. So let me go down here and show you another example of what this sounds like. This is a true mono synth. One really great thing about this one is that as you hold out the note, there's all sorts of interesting sort of grittiness and and messiness that comes in on the decay. So here is this brash mono lead layered with that same piano and that same pad. Notice how interesting those held out notes are because of the way that that tail fades out on this mono lead. Now here again, the layer range of the lead sound is a really important choice for you to make anytime you're adding lead sounds in with pianos and pads. So for this specific example, I've actually moved the layer range and condensed it for the mono lead again to just the right hand. Then I've also transposed it down an octave. So I'm actually playing in a higher range and then taking the notes and shifting them back down. So I'm able to sort of free up some space in the middle for just the piano and pad. Then I can go to that lead part in the right hand anytime I need that extra energy. Okay, so next let's go back to another poly lead sound. This is called the Hyperlight Lead. This one is sort of in that pad territory, but it has a really nice sort of immediate attack that makes it really useful as a lead sound. And there's all sorts of sort of unison detuning going on here that makes it nice and bright. It's definitely gonna pop out in the patch. So for this example, rather than blending this into some of the same range as the piano and pad, I've actually carved out space below the lead sound that are just piano and pad, and then that lead sound is available on top for about an octave in range. And this allows me to actually play octaves in my right hand and activate just the piano and pad if I'd like, or I can add a high octave on top and also get that lead sound in the mix. So start off with just the piano and pad. So here's the right hand alone, just that piano and the lead sound. So because the layer range is really strategically split, it gives me a lot of control and flexibility over the moments when I want to use that lead sound. This leads to another big picture idea about making sure you're setting yourself up for success when it comes to integrating a really cool lead sound into a layered patch. Make sure that you're giving yourself the control that you're gonna need to be able to dial that sound in, or even to react in the moment if it's not sitting where you expect it to. Lead sounds are an important and bold choice and a really big statement to make. So you want to make sure that you've set yourself up for success and thought through, what am I going to do if this isn't working in the moment? Make sure you can adjust the volume, make sure you have a way to adjust the brightness, and make sure you've thought through where you do and don't need that sound on the keyboard. If you're not quite sure how to adjust the layer range of an instrument in MainStage or in Ableton Live, just head over to our website. We'll teach you how to do it over there. Okay, so let's do a couple more examples here. Let's talk about a different type of lead sound. This is a really sort of poppy, synthetic, sort of wooden lead sound. It's called the bamboo lead. Okay, and then there's a little bit of a sustaining sort of pad feel as well. This type of sound might not sound very inspiring or powerful on its own, but again, like I talked about several minutes back in the video, that's kind of the point oftentimes when you're looking to, in a really tasteful way, add a lead sound into a patch. It doesn't need to take up all the space. It doesn't need to be the sole statement that your patch is making. Just think of it as adding a little bit of extra attack, a little bit of extra bite and texture to what you're already wanting to do with your patch. So for this one, I've got the same balanced piano, and then I've swapped out the pad sound for something with a little bit more brightness, a little bit more attack on its own. So here is just the piano and pad. So that pad in and of itself is nice and bright, sort of in that lead territory as well, but it's a very pure sort of traditional analog polysynth. That's what makes this sort of wooden bamboo sort of lead sound a really, really cool choice to layer in along with it, because they're so diverse, they're so distinct and different from each other. It's a really cool texture to add on top. So here they are all together. So again, this is all about that percussive initial attack. It's not an incredibly powerful sound. It's just the right sound to complement what you're already trying to do in this particular type of patch, and add that extra bit of percussiveness and attack up front that sort of sets it over the top. I've got this actually spread across the whole range of the keyboard because I really like getting that extra little clackiness even down in the left hand. But if you needed to just highlight a right hand melodic part, then you could just shift the layer range to sit exactly where you need it. Okay, so let's keep going here. I'm going to talk about this Phoenix lead sound, which is sort of like a glassy sort of bell lead sound. This is a really ambient, more subtle kind of lead sound. In this last example, let's talk about actually building an entire patch based around the lead sound rather than picking a lead sound to add into what you're already trying to do. So with this, because we know this lead sound is a little bit more subtle, we're kind of treating this as the piano sound, or as the replacement of the lead instrument itself. Super cool, super retro, but it is simple. It's not incredibly powerful. So I've chosen just a couple of layers I'm going to add in that I know are going to complement it really well. I have added a nice deep sort of pad sound. It's called the deep ober pad, and then a really simple synth bass patch. So all together, I'm choosing the other layers really, really specifically so that they don't get in the way of or overshadow what I really do want to stand out on top in this sort of glassy lead sound. All right, guys, so there's a few ideas for you to think about the next time you're trying to figure out how to add a lead sound into your layered worship patches. Leave a comment on this video and let us know your questions, your comments, and your favorite ways to integrate lead sounds into your worship key setup. If you love the sounds that I used in this video, be sure to check out the links in the description to both our Sunday Keys template, which is available for MainStage and Ableton Live, as well as our brand new Mega Leads sound library, also available for both MainStage and Ableton Live users. Lastly, be sure to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. And if you don't want to miss our next video, make sure you hit the notification bell, because we put out new worship keys tutorials, inspiration, and videos all the time. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.